Okay, so first of all, guys, thank you for doing this interview. And to begin, can you introduce yourselves first?
Hi, I'm Jake, and I play guitar.
I'm Justin Barry. I play bass.
I'm Danny Gomez, and I sing and play guitar.
Nico Espinosa, and I play the drums.
The band started in 2017. Jake and I met each other first. We grew up in a small, quaint town in South Florida. I had moved from Colombia, and we weren't really close when we were kids. He was always a very cool kid, though I will say.
No.
Yeah, you should have seen him back in the day. Kind of reached to the point where we formed, the Native Son band and lineup, which is what you see here. When Nico and Justin joined us, during the pandemic. Before that, Jake and I were working on everything, getting it together, and, I think this pandemic allowed us to really solidify and lock down who we are as a band and who we want to be going forward.
Yeah, and I met the band because I was at a Native Son show. I got my teeth knocked out. So literally that's how I met them.
show.
Yeah. And then we became friends through that, pretty much.
He messaged us the next day. He's like, "I lost 2 teeth at your show. Nice to meet you."
A great way.
Yeah, he's our Sid Vicious moment, but he can actually play. He can actually play and isn't so much of a twat sometimes.
And we met Nico playing. He was playing in a band called Deaf Poets. We played a show with him a few years ago, and he's just 2020's John Bonham.
I remember distinctly talking to you guys at South by the one year we both happened to be playing.
Oh, right.
And I remember the Amo and the Sniffers show at
Oh, yeah.
Hotel Vegas,
What?
and I looked to my left, and I just see you, Jake, like smiling, going like this.
Yeah.
And I just said, "Holy shit, that's the guys from Native Son." And I remember talking to you guys after that a little bit, and then I was like, "Oh shit!" Then we talked at your guys' show.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Right.
Thank you so much for the compliment, man.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's I like that it's a name that it does have a specific moment that happened to us, and that's how we came up with the moment. But I also think it's a name that's also very up to interpretation. I think it's cool if everybody's able to gain their own thing from it and how they can use that into their life. But long story short, kind of around the time we were starting the band, I was really into James Baldwin's Notes of a Native Son, and then I don't know why the combination with that, and I was very into Morrison Hotel that summer. I don't know, the imagery of all that kind of combined in my head, and we had a song called Native Son at the start, so this is our kind of like Sabbath moment. We had a song called Native Son, and then Jake was like, "I feel like that could be a cooler band name," because the other band names we were tossing around, it just like, it just sounded.
All the band names we were trying to come up with sounded like song names.
Yeah.
And we had the song called Native Son that felt like a band name, and we just swapped. We changed the name of the song, and we named the band Native Son. What I've always loved about the name is that to people, whether I know them well or it's someone that I'm just meeting and we talk about the band, they oftentimes people say that the name feels very familiar, and that speaks to me to what Danny was just saying about everyone has their own interpretation from it. I think it's a name that means something to people in their own way, which is something that I found.
Yeah. I think a big mission statement with this band is being timeless, being a band that could be from the past, from the present, or from the future.
Yeah.
And I think our favorite records and our favorite, bands and artists have that aspect to it, and I think the name kind of lies within that. Also, you could just go into it so much, but I think another big statement about it, is his, equality and, kind of the imagery of something the Native Son had seen as something we're all under and we all share the same. There's no, difference no matter where you're from, who you are, what your gender is. Before we get into the text, funny enough, someone asked me the other day after we played our show with Geese, they're like, what do you guys use, to get like your crunchy, tough, guitar sound or whatever? I'm like, that's our clean sound. You just nowadays for some reason people think that if you play an amp softly, it's gonna have the same sound, and Johnny Thunder played his twin reverb with everything to 10 because it creates a certain sound when you push it. I'm like, that's just our guitars on clean. There's no pedal for that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like myself definitely, but I feel like a lot of us in our lives were raised on the idea of like, if you have something important to say that you want people to hear, then you have to speak up. And I feel like that's the sound of Native Son, right? Like, so many times we've been wheeling in big amps to a tiny venue, and some sound guys like, are you really gonna play out of that? And like, yeah, the answer is absolutely yes, because when we play, we're speaking up, and we want
everybody
to hear
to,
it.
like, that's the thing is, when you come to a Native Son show, you can't speak over the show or get distracted. I feel like sometimes you go to shows and there's people hanging out by the bar, you're able to talk, and the music's just there in the background. When you come to our show, as I say it, it's like, we're going to force you to listen to us, and you're not going to be able to speak over us, and you have to pay attention to what's going on up there. You can decide if you like it or not after, and we could give a fuck, but you're going to listen to us.
Exactly.
Sound guy definitely doesn't like it. That's a fact.
We now have on our sound, it says this band is loud.
Definitely bring earplugs to the show. Protect yourself.
Still haven't made Native Son earplugs. That's the next
That's on the list.
That's always talking about.
That being said, we're all like huge. Like, we love our own special gear that we have, and we're always like sending each other links like, oh, should I get this third drum set?
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Not needed at all.
And also, I think a thing that's cool is we're not, geeky in like a modern way, like trying to like keep up with things. It's more, I think we really know what we like, and going to view, what, I think a great example is just, icons, and some of that old school stuff isn't broken, so there's no need to adapt to that. Those first recordings, we were always just figuring out things. It was the kind of thing, as I was saying, is we like recorded one song, and then we just started getting show offers, and we were kind of lost in the mojo of it, and having to we're just going with it, like that was life. And it also allowed us, though, to learn about the things that we liked and we didn't like, and how, we're in the process right now of just starting to develop what the first album would look like. And, I'm glad now in retrospect, because we know exactly going into it how it's going to be, the people that are involved making it, and the time that's worked on the songs.
I appreciate both versions of this story, but I feel like there's bands that they come out with their first record and their sound is already like clearly defined, and they come out swinging. And there's other bands that kind of like take the listener on the journey as they grow. And when I listen to some of the earlier Native Son songs compared to like the demos we're working on now, and just see how the sonics have evolved over that time frame, it's just like a band learning as it goes in real time, as opposed to manicuring everything before anybody else gets to hear it. And I think that there's something cool and honest about that.
Yeah, I mean, like, think about it. Like, go listen to the early Beatles, and then, like, by the time they break up, it's like, you can't have one without the other, and would you want, and it's like, I'm gonna, listen to I Saw Her Standing There the same as, Helter Skelter. I mean, I there's always the subconscious, and, think about things, but I think we don't try to restrict ourselves, and I think it's just naturally who we are, and I think if we try to overcalculate that part of things, then that would be dishonest to everyone.
Something that I've really learned over my years in this band is you have your own, or a musician might have their own individual idea of what they want the band to sound like, but when four people with their own idea of what the band wants to sound like come together, there's an evolutionary process where you learn how to speak a common language rather than your own. So it's funny you mentioned the Stooges and Led Zeppelin, because like those are obviously bands that are very important to us, but maybe I came to the earlier Native Son practices and songwriting sessions thinking like, I want to sound like Black Flag, and Danny was like, I want to sound like Lou Reed. It was the journey along growing and working together where we find where those things overlap and where they are opposites and where they're similar and how it becomes its own sound. So it goes back to what I was saying before about growing with the listener and inviting them along the journey.
There's definitely like a common DNA to it all that we have, but as he said, bringing in those other things then lead the brain to think in other ways that my brain wouldn't have gone to.
And for me, watching you guys be a band before I joined is figuring out how I can like see myself fitting in what you guys are doing and try to bring in a sound for the band, and that was cool for me because I was watching them live and I was thought, man, I will do this here, but it's just because I really enjoy their sound already. So it was cool when I be able to bring in some of the things that I did and it be such a natural fit with what they already wanted to do. For me, it was. I mentioned earlier, I always watched them play and just felt like I could be a good fit. Just because stylistically, what I brought to my style of drumming, as well as just the influences. I can tell, like I will see Jake and be like, oh, I know he's trying to be Paige right now, and I know that I got some bass drum licks for him that he can probably jam to, and then seeing Danny go insane on stage, I'm like, yeah, I kind of want that vibe too, because I kind of like being more than just sitting down. I kind of express myself differently when I drum, so for me it was awesome coming in and different from other projects.
There's no rules on stage. Like we don't like you. There's
I think for me, like, it's different because I think that everyone in the band is like extremely hardworking, and it's kind of hard to find people that you get along with that also have like a strong work ethic. Where there's like, as Jake was saying, these overlaps in sort of influences or like where we're coming from. So I felt like it became easier to like speak that like mutually understood language between us, and beyond that, just like the raw energy of playing the live shows is something that's really important to me. So that is something that I feel like Native Son, like when I had seen them previously, I was like, I like watching this band because they look like they're like, if they weren't playing music, they'd die sort of thing, and like that's like what I relate to as well. If you were, I mean, obviously, like we all grew up watching
You've
bands.
seen the footage and you have it in your brain.
So like you know about those things, but I think like you can't really like copy somebody. I feel like when it comes to stage presence, I feel like it's more about like letting loose. Where it, like I feel like we've talked about this a lot, but it's almost like you feel like it's like a blackout on stage because you're like so in the zone that you don't even realize like kind of what you're doing half the time. At least for me, can't speak for everyone else, but it's just like it's kind of like this like blank like. I don't know, like moment of craziness where it's like hard to even process.
Also, it's like we know people have like thrown themselves at a drum set or guitar soloed, in the crowd, things like that. We're not saying that do those things, son. But I mean, as you said, the most honest description is that I don't know. I feel it feels like a workout sometimes playing these shows.
I had a good conversation about this with a friend of mine after one of our shows. It's not about mirroring an inspiration, but it's how can we drive closer to what we decided was called the source. Obviously, when I wake up and like my mind is full of the guitar solos of Neil Young or Jimmy Page, but when I'm on stage, it's not thinking about Jimmy Page or Neil Young. It's like what inspires them and what do we have in common in that source. So when you say Danny is reflective of Iggy Pop and stuff like that, I think about how what we have in common is like, well, what was Iggy Pop freaking out about? Where he came from and what he was.
There's positive anger that's coming inside angst that comes out.
And of course, Iggy Pop, grew up watching performers and was inspired in a way by them. But I think there was also this intangible, non-referential source that he was pulling from that I think a lot of these figures all have in common.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's kind of what we pull from as well.
I think in the process of it all, you know, there's a lot of kind of like subconscious ad-libbing. I always have an idea or a concept of where it's going, but I do very believe in kind of like a Pollock way of, you know, coming up with phrasing. You know, the same way you would, you know, throw, you know, different colors of paint and then you see what sticks. But then by the end of it all, you know, maybe in a practice or in a show, you know, before the song's recorded, by the fourth time, fifth time, you're saying, you know, one thing that you may have not said in another version that then you can store in your pocket, you know, and things like that. And then by the end of it all, before it's recorded, I like to sit down and try to come up with the ones that made sense and were the best of those kind of, I just think there's a lot of power in, you know, like catchphrases and like one-liners. So what came to me during that song and then thinking about what the song is about, that stuck the hardest in my memory, you know, liking to combine that alphabet soup of those things.
Amazing.
You know, but there always is a conscious, you know, message and thing going on. And then sometimes, you know, you can contradict yourself, and sometimes you can write a song that you don't know what it's about, and you may never know what it's about, and it's fine. You can write songs with meanings and without meanings. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Leonard Cohen said he still doesn't know what Famous Blue Raincoat's about, but he knows what a lot of his other songs are about, and that's one of his, you know, most famous songs. And people lyrically are like, "Wow, that one is," and he's like, "I still don't know what it's about." It's all bullshit. You can go one way, you can go the other way. It's fucking good. You don't need to explain it.
Yeah, so I started making flyers for the band because we were getting booked on shows, and so a lot of the flyers were made by someone that had never heard of the band before and just thought it wasn't visually representative of our identity. So I just self-taught myself how to make stuff on Illustrator and Photoshop by like literally clicking every button until it looked like I wanted it to look. That ballooned into making, you know, trying to make a t-shirt, and then designing the text for one of our EPs, and then designing the cover art for some of our singles. Yeah, I do believe that the artwork and the visual identity of a band is very important because it speaks to a listener in a way that otherwise is very difficult to come across. If we have a 5-minute song, that's a lot of time for someone to sit and learn about a band. But all throughout time, people have been digging through record bins and judging something by its cover. So the visual language that I like started to mold together for the band, I think really grew along with our sound, and it's totally an important piece of the puzzle. That said, like inspiration and collaboration, the inspiration tends to hit me like just a random bolt of lightning. Like I'll spend a week being like, I have no idea what to make for a t-shirt, and then I'll be walking down the street and all of a sudden it'll just be like, whoa, and then I'll run home and do it. Collaboration wise, I love to send stuff to the band and see what they think. You know, like the artwork for Off the Dial and Jesus started with it was black and white with like no border and no color, and I was like, it's done, don't tell me about any changes. You know, then Danny's like, what if we added a color? So we added yellow, and then I threw it back with a gradient, and it's fun to start with an idea and then pass it back and forth a little bit. That's a lot of how the songwriting goes too.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something that like I love doing and is a part of, definitely an important piece of the band.
Yeah, and we like, you know, keeping it, you know, kind of a lot of the stuff also in like friends and family in-house. I think it's important to stick to our New York roots and work with people around here, like you know, our friends Pond Creative, Rachel and Natalie. You know, I've done a couple of our videos. You know, our friend Alec Castillo from the Nude Party did our video for Jesus. So that was a lot of fun. So yeah, just, you know, try to have fun, be silly, but, you know, I don't know.
Thank you guys so much for your time.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.